Hey everyone, we're here in our Duramax service center. We're going to be doing 2 lift pump installs on 2 different trucks. Our techs are going to be working on a 2005 LLY, which is right here, and we're going to be working on my personal 2016 LML that's behind me. Now, you may have seen in the past we just did a CP3 conversion on this truck, and now it's going to be time to go ahead and put a lift pump on it. So as most Duramax and diesel owners know, there's 2 big companies that are going to provide lift pumps with filtration kits on it. You're going to have fast fuel system, and you're going to have the AirDog fuel systems. Today we're going to be installing AirDog. We really like AirDog as a product, the company, their customer support, and everything that goes along with it. So what we have is going to be 4G 165s going on both models. They're going to be 2 different part numbers, which you can find on our website if you're interested in either one. So you're going to see that Brandon has already got some of the parts pulled for his LLY, which was right here. So we always like to go ahead, open the box, make sure all the parts are here, everything is good to go before we start taking something apart or getting ready on the install. This one here, I got the box is still closed. We're going to do a quick open box unboxing on this so you can see some of the products. We'll talk a little bit about the products that come with it, why we use them, what we do with it, and then as we move forward on the installation, you'll be hearing from Brandon and Dan talking about where we tap the electrical in the fuse box, why we go to certain locations on fuses, how we do the fittings, where we mount them, as these 2 trucks have different mounting points with them. So we'll open this box up, show you a little bit about what comes inside. So 4G 165, this guy's going to come with the fuel hose, so AirDog provides all the fuel hose with it. So this fuel hose will get trimmed down to size as we do our install. So we got the fuel hose is good. We got the harness. It's going to have a relay with it, a fuse, the fuse tap, everything on this one here. So the harness that you're going to see later is one thing that we do in-house. It's not necessarily needed whatsoever, but we actually trim down this harness just to make it a little bit cleaner install with it so we don't have a bunch of loom and wiring under the engine compartment. AirDog comes with some great instructions, which you're going to have in this bag right here. Instructions are going to be pretty detailed of how you're going to install everything. And the nice thing about AirDog is that everything that you're going to need, for the most part, is going to be inside this box. So you don't need to go out and source a bunch of other stuff. On the LML, we are going to get a couple different bolts and nuts for the installation of where we mount it. You'll see that a little bit later as we go through this process. So instructions, inside the instructions also has a warranty registration card. It's very important to get that thing filled out and get that registered online on AirDog's website. AirDog provides a lifetime warranty if anything ever fails to the original owner. So you want to get this thing filled out, get that inputted, so that way if there's ever an issue with it, you reach out to them, let them know the concern, serial number, and they're pretty much going to send you out a part to get that thing replaced to get you back on the road. So that's what's going to be in this bag. We have the pump and motor assembly here with the filters already installed. I'm going to have a tombstone right here on the end. This is something that if you ever have a question about something, you have to contact AirDog. They'll refer to this as the tombstone. And then last is going to be in this box here is going to be our hardware, our fittings, the area where we're going to go ahead and put the return tube back for the fuel on the fuel filler neck. So just again, like to make sure everything's inside here. So we have some hardware, got some O-rings as a seal maintenance kit for future. We have our fittings, all the quick disconnect fittings that are going to be barbed that you're going to put in the fuel hose. And then we also have on this one here, it's going to be the sleeve where you're going to cut the fuel neck and you're going to install a hose back here. So this will be for the return side as it returns the fuel and goes back into the tank. So nice and easy zip ties. You have a couple of clamps for that sleeve. And then also a mounting bracket where you can mount this thing up on it. So we're going to get moving forward on this thing. We're going to get these trucks up in the air. We're going to go ahead and show you some mounting locations, how we go about some stuff. And then as we go through the process, we'll also talk about why we like to install these lift pumps, the AirDog especially, and what we do for the different models. So take a watch, enjoy, and stay tuned.
Okay, we're going to show you how we hook up our underhood wiring for the AirDog. This one I've already kind of got everything laid out. Down here is your relay for your AirDog. On this is a 2016 LML, so we just mount it to this bottom bolt on the bottom of this knock sensor, and then it sits there nice and rigid. We take the 2 wires that go to the AirDog, we actually run them down to the frame rail, and that leaves you with an ignition source and your battery cables. Now we shorten this harness up a little bit just to make it a little easier and cleaner. Not necessary. If you go to plug all these in, you're going to have all these same fittings. You can just wrap up whatever wires you're not using and tuck them into the back right here. But to start with, we're going to go ahead and show you which fuse we're tapping into for our ignition source. I'm going to go ahead and use a test lamp. I'm going to turn the ignition on, and I'm going to start just by making sure we're going to use the ECM ignition on this one. So right now, ECM ignition has no power to it. I'm going to turn the ignition on. I'm going to make sure the power comes back. Okay, so that's the fuse that we're going to use. We verified that ignition source. Okay, to hook this up, AirDog gives you basically a 2 fuse tap. So this is now going to be your original fuse in your fuse block. So we're going to pull it, we're going to install it to that. That's going to power back into your fuse block and power up your ECM. And then this is going to be the fuse right here that is going to power the ignition going to the relay for your AirDog, to power your AirDog up. Pop your fuse out. Install it into the block. And plug the whole piece back into the original location. And that's it. Ignition source for the AirDog's hooked up. Now we'll hook up the battery. Battery's fairly simple. We're just going to take your red, go to your positive stud right here. Tap that into there, make it look nice and clean. Install your factory cover back on there. Positive's hooked up. Now your ground wire is going to hook right here. We're not going to hook it up quite yet. We're going to wait till the entire install for the AirDog's done. This is going to be the last wire that we hook up before we power everything up. Fuse block cover back on. And that's pretty much it for the underhood wiring.
All right, so here we have the 05. The relay is mounted here on the firewall with that little plastic thing. And then we have the ground coming over here. It's going to be connected to that post right there. We have the backup lamp being used as the ignition source. And the power is going to be underneath this plastic piece. There's a 175 amp fuse. I use that 7mm bolt for the power supply.
We're going to go ahead and install the fittings into the AirDog. We're going to start by removing these red plugs. Just unscrew them out of here. We're going to take your fitting, and you can, the instructions say to use clean engine oil. We use assembly lube. You just want to put something on the threads in the O-ring so that the threads stay clean and the O-ring will slide. Just thread them in to install them. We're going to torque them to 5 foot-pounds. Once you're torqued, you'll install the other 2 fittings the same way.
So here we have the AirDog itself. I've already gone through and installed all 3 fittings. Now if you install the AirDog and realize you need to adjust the pressure in any way, you back off this nut and stick a flathead screwdriver in here, turn left to lower the pressure and right to increase it. And then you tighten up the nut.
Alright, on our 2016 LML, this little tab right here protrudes off the frame. This is where we're going to mount our AirDog bracket to. This bracket right here, this is what's going to hold all the AirDog pump and the filters and everything in place. So basically off this tab, we use this center hole right here kind of as a guide. We put our bracket on this side first, and you can use that to kind of set up to where to drill your holes, and then you're going to drill these 3 holes out. Once you get those 3 holes out, you're going to put the bracket actually on this side. Everything should line up perfect, and then you're going to just bolt the bracket right to the frame.
So here we have the stock mounting location for an 01 to 10 AirDog. In order to install it right here, you have to come to the outside of the frame rail first, pop off this plastic clip. After you pop off that plastic clip, it helps to pop the brake line out of this bracket right here. After that, you install the AirDog with the provided hardware. It's ready to install the coupler at this point. But if it was an LB7, what I would have to do is take this portion out, because the LB7 has a plastic tube that runs all the way from the top into the tank. So on an LB7, I would have to remove this, take it out, install the coupler, and then install the hose back in.
Next, we're going to hook up our fuel feed to the engine compartment. So we take your rubber hose, slide it down on the other side of the steering shaft, and then we're going to slide it down by the frame rail where we're going to secure it once everything's hooked up. We also disconnect this. This is the bigger of the two fittings coming up here. The bigger one is the feed, so we disconnect that off the pipe to the motor. We plug this off, and we actually just leave this here, just in case you ever need to go back to stock for any reason. This line is still good, and the plug keeps any debris from getting inside there. Then you just take your fitting that we put on a few minutes ago, slide it down, put it onto the pipe. You hear the click, and then pull on it a couple times to make sure that it's secure and it's not going to come off. And that's it. Okay, once the line's hooked up to the top, here's the rubber hose. We dropped it down here. We run it along the frame rail, kind of hook it up with where the stock fuel lines are. Zip tie it up, make sure it's secure so it's not going to drag and fall down and hit the ground. We run it all the way up to where your AirDog comes in, and then this hose is actually going to hook to your outlet on your AirDog pump itself, which is on the inside edge. You put a 90-degree angle fitting on it, and it's going to hook right in here. Once you have that one hooked up, your next hose you're going to hook up is going to be, this will be the feed coming from the tank. Another 90-degree fitting right here. On the other end of this hose, it's hooked up to the center of the tank up here, and it has that fitting with that red dot. The last hose you're going to hook up hooks up right next to where the outlet is. It's the return hose. This return hose is actually going to go to the filler neck hose. So another 90-degree fitting, so you have your clearance. Run your hose up along your frame rail. It'll come across, and it's going to go right into the fitting that we installed into the filler neck right here. Clips right in. Zip tie it to whatever you can. Keep it secure. And that's it for the plumbing. All right, so we got the AirDog all installed, wired up, ready to go. We're just gonna show you real quick our last step. We like to go ahead and set the pressures between 8 and 10 on the LML. So right here, you have your service port. Sits right on the top of the motor on the LML. We have a digital gauge that we hook up. You can also do these in just a regular gauge too. But we got it all set up. Right now it's reading 0. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up, and we'll show you what the pressure readings are. Let it equalize out there, and we look pretty good. This one's set at 9, so we're not gonna have to make any more adjustments on this one.
So we're all wrapped up with both jobs. We got Brandon's road tested, cleaned up, made sure everything's looking good. Truck's parked out front, waiting for the customer to pick that one up. Dan just got back with the road test on this one. Everything's looking good. He's got the pressure checked to make sure everything looks good with it. So before we wrap up the video, we want to just go ahead and talk a couple of things about why we put lift pumps on these trucks and why we feel they're so important. A big thing is filtration, getting a good filtration with it. The AirDog system is going to be able to remove the moisture, remove the oxygen out of the fuel to get the best fuel going up to the system. It also helps take the load off the injection pump. The CP3 and CP4 both have a vacuum system on it, so it's actually sucking the fuel up from the factory. So now you're going to take that vacuum system and put a small amount of pressure on it. So that's going to help take the load off of the injection pump to give you better longevity, more miles and time out of it. Getting better clean fuel to the fuel injectors like I mentioned. Also is going to help with economy, help reduce some of the emissions coming out your exhaust, a little bit better throttle response also. So there's a lot of good things about these lift pumps. The LB7 is a very important one. We really want to do a lift pump on every LB7 because of the way that those injectors fail, and we found the lift pumps, especially AirDog, is going to help with that system on it. So that's why we like to put these guys on. And I also want to follow up on a couple of common questions we get through our sales team. So I had them put together a small list of common questions that we get from our customers of why, what to do here, what to do there. So the biggest one's going to be, what's the difference between the 100 and the 165? Really, it's the amount of gallons per hour. So 100 gallons per hour or 165 gallons per hour of what it's going to be flowing. Really going to be based on volume. On an LB7, we really only recommend the 100 on it. The LB7s are more sensitive to pressure and volume on that low pressure side, which was a vacuum. So we want to keep the pressure down, keep the volume down, make that fuel pressure regulator on the injection pump nice and happy. LLY to current, or LLY to say 2016, we're looking good on the 165 because we really don't see issues with that for that higher volume on the 165. So really volume, how much it flows per hour. Next thing is keeping the stock fuel filter. We highly recommend keeping the stock fuel filter in place for a few reasons. One, more filtration the better. Keeping a good fuel filter up in place on there. And also, if there's ever an issue within the lift pump itself and you need to prime the system, if you remove the filter and the filter housing, you don't have a way to prime that fuel system to start the truck up. Even though it's a pass-through system, you're still going to want to have the primer. So keep that fuel filter in place. We recommend a Raycor fuel filter on those, and then keeping the fuel filter housing in place. That way you have the primer. And then next one's going to be basically filter servicing. AirDog filters, factory fuel filter, all models, we recommend 15,000 mile service intervals. So we do a fuel filter again when we do the AirDog install. So this one got a fuel filter, obviously got the new AirDog filters, and now in 15,000 miles, I'll go ahead and replace them again. And that's what we recommend to all our customers. So 15,000 mile intervals is what we recommend on the servicing of the filters. Next one's gonna be pressure setting. Pressure setting, we want to keep these things roughly, for the most part, on an LB7, we're going to go 5 to 7 PSI on it. On a LLY to an LML, we're going to go ahead and put it in whatever the setup out of the box. So we put it in, we check it. Sometimes they come up a little bit high. If we feel they're a little bit high, we try and get that pressure down, say on a LLY to LMM, anywhere from say 7 to 10 PSI on it. So we want to make sure we don't have any leaks, keep the fuel pressure regulator on the injection pump nice and happy, and know that if you ever need to, you can make the adjustment to come down a little bit lower. On an LB7, we're going to go ahead and cut a coil spring down on the regulator, down just a small amount to be able to help bring that pressure down. So those are the most common questions we get from customers. If you're watching the video or you're thinking about doing one and you have a question, give our sales or service team a call and we can always help you out a little bit further from there. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got to learn some stuff on the installs. Once again, thanks for choosing DMAX Store. We'll see you next time.